So your band's Dead Heat.
Dead Heat.
And how long you guys been playing?
We've been playing for the last 6 years.
6 years.
Yeah.
Ah, cool.
I think it's like 2016.
2016.
Yeah.
So really, really new. Now, what I want to know about is influences. You know, like
You guys to be a start. Right. But I feel like every kid from around our scene is inspired by you guys.
Yeah.
Like at one spot or another.
Dude, that just blows me away that people still care and
Yeah.
that, you know, that it mattered. And I mean, what it always brings back to me is when I was in undergrad in college,
Yeah.
I was studying history and I was always like thinking, oh man, I wish I lived at an important time in history. I wish I lived in the civil rights movement, or I wish I lived in, you know, ancient Rome, or, you know. And then as I grew up and, you know, and it started like seeing dudes like you going, oh, In Control changed my life, or wow, that totally inspired me. I'm like, oh my God, I lived in a historical moment.
Yeah.
You know, like I lived at the birth of hardcore, really. You know, it's like, because I was talking to Sammy last night, and when I first got into punk, I was same age, 14, and I read a magazine article about the Sex Pistols, and I was like, that's it, I'm punk. Because, you know, you're struggling for identity, you're trying to find.
It's always like that when you're young, especially like if you're not like connected with everybody as much. Yeah. It's like when you find something that like, I don't know, like punk, it's like, oh, that's kind of like offset, you know, not everybody's into that. So I'm like, all right.
Did you find yourself like, did you feel like a bit of an outsider?
Kind of, but at the same time, like I had like sister and a brother who were like into like, well, my sister was into like metal, so she was like into Slayer and all that, like when I was young, and like, so I was like, I already knew about that, like when I was young, but like getting into like punk, it was like my own thing. Yeah,
I mean, it was funny because our family was a real musical family, like, I mean, music loving family. So, you know, my dad was really, because my dad's African American, so he was really into blues and Ledbetter and you know, Lead Belly and, you know, all of this old school stuff. Then I got into like Ted Nugent, Cheap Trick. And, you know, and then I started skating first, and I guess I was a little bit of a skateboarder. And
that's where I started, basically. I think it always starts with skateboarding.
But then when, you know, when punk came into the picture, man, that's when, you know, it kind of really took off for me. But even then, like, I was at, you know, that kind of like 77 kind of English style punk. And then it was, for me, it was hearing Minor Threat. Like when
that's another one.
You know, so somebody turned me on to. I think I was at a party in LA, and somebody was playing their first 7-inch, and I was like, "What the fuck is this?"
Was it the filler one? Like,
yeah. And you know, there was a filler, straight edge, and I was like, "Fuck!" And that was like, dude, that was like a total like light bulb, like you know, I always talk about it as a religious experience. You know,
I feel it the same way because like obviously like Minor Threat's my first band, like getting into punk, so I was like, as I remember, it was Rage Against the Machine. They covered it.
Oh, okay,
And like I was like, that was my introduction to it because I remember like my sister playing that. And I was like, and then I heard Slayer cover Minor Threat on another thing. I was like, basically, I feel like Minor Threat's like everybody's introduction.
Yeah.
It should be at least.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
And did you and when did you start playing? Like, you know, because it's one thing being in the scene, going to shows. But when did you start going, hey, I can do that. I can be that guy or that woman on the stage?
I'm trying to think. I'm like, because I was in high school when I my first band. So I was like, I want to say 2005.
And were you singing then? Or?
I played bass.
Played bass.
Yeah,
okay.
I was just playing bass for
so you're a multi-instrumentalist.
Well, at least bass, at least. I can play that. But other than that, I was just like doing that for the longest time. You guys started, when, 82?
It's kind of vague. I think about 81, 82. I think that's about right, yeah.
And like for you, like you had that itch obviously to start a band.
Yeah. Go ahead.
But was Stat like your first band like accomplished? Like
No, actually I actually sang for Dr. No.
Oh yeah.
For about 3 months.
Okay.
And that was when it was Kyle, this guy Robin Cartwright, and Ismail was on bass. Okay. And it was kind of funny, like I was digging it, I was into it, and you know, they liked my vocals, and it was, I think it was a girlfriend at the time was like, oh, you know, don't play with those dudes. And so I was like, I left the band for that, like total stupid reason.
I mean, that happens.
Yeah, and then I played in this like joke band called Ape Sex with Jaime and Gilbert Hernandez.
Gotcha.
From Love and Rockets. And that was just cool, just mucking around.
Yeah.
We played a couple of parties.
Yeah.
And then it was like, I don't know. I guess like I was keen to be in a band, and then it was really like going back to that, hearing Minor Threat, and then starting to get into all these East Coast bands, SSD and Necros from Ohio, and then I think what really kind of like got me going was I think it was when Rollins came out from because I knew him from SOA, and then I was at this Ramones show at the Palladium, at Hollywood Palladium, and Rollins was there, and I was like fucking sick.
Yeah.
And I started talking to him, and he was really cool. And he talked to me, and I was asking him all these questions about DC, about Ian, about SOA, about all the bands, and I went to see their first show, or it's disputed or debated whether it's their first show at the Cuckoo's Nest with Henry, and that was just insane. And and Henry was just like
on it,
and I was like, I want to do that.
Yeah. I feel like that's how it was too.
Yeah.
Like, well, another band that influenced me, that was influenced by you, is In Control.
Yeah. And that blew me away, man. That a band named their band after our album.
That was like my introduction to being like hardcore.
Yeah.
It was more on like the hardcore side instead of like the punk side that I was used to.
Yeah.
And like that's why I was like, oh, this is aggressive. I love that shit. And I remember seeing them for the first time when I was young. I was like 14, 15.
Yeah.
And that was like my first like nardcore show, I guess.
Oh, cool.
Because I went to like shows before that, but it was like big shows like the Palladium.
Yeah.
And it was like that thing to sing like Corn or something. Like,
I know, because that's the thing. Like when you're into it, man, there's bands playing.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, I guess punk, hardcore, metalcore is kind of become, I won't say the word mainstream, but like a little bit more legitimate and playing in big venues. Where back in the day, man, we were at the Cathedral Grand.
You guys are doing it. And that's what
parties, little tiny shitty clubs in really bad neighborhoods.
Yeah.
All right, with the start of the band, it was like, like I said, I saw Rollins, that was it, man. I'm like, I'm doing a band, I'm singing.
Yeah.
But like I said, I started out drumming, and I was doing the drummer-singer thing. And I got this guy, Carl Winrich, on guitar, and it was basically me and him started the band. And, the lyrics, you go, the lyrics are about life. The lyrics are about, experiencing, what you experience. And I go, and you're limited in your knowledge or your experience as a 15, 16, 17, 18-year-old, but not really, because, like things like that song Black and Gray is about depression. And, I suffered with depression, probably still do a bit, a lot of people do. And I know my dad did. And I think, that's where that song came from. But just, I guess, realizing that, you can, what you're living, what you're experiencing means something and matters, I guess.
Yeah. How does it feel like that affecting you now? Like the impact it's made on the community here for the last 40 years, like basically like seeing your impact on nardcore and how it is now. How do you feel about that?
Like all I can really say is I just feel blown away.
Yeah.
Like to hear the last time, I mean, even like in the Wainimi show we played on Saturday, it was like, I don't know, I spoke to so many kids and they were just like, your lyrics, impacted me. It means something.
Yeah.
And the whole, and that was the thing, it was the whole PMA thing, the whole positive thing. And, growing up in Oxnard, and I mean, I actually grew up in Wainimi, which was even.
I mean, it's still Oxnard. It's hand in hand.
Yeah, Oxnard, Wainimi.
It blends.
I mean, I went to school in Oxnard effectively, and I guess growing up at that time, it was like, we were still in like the Cold War. It was like heavy military town, and just being different was not really welcomed. It wasn't a cool thing. So I guess it was kind of finding a spot in making music, and I guess trying to be more positive, making some positive change.
Yeah.
It's like I had a fire inside, and I wanted to say something, about like something like the song Black and not Black and Gray, the song Black Stick Silver Badge, about the police, because man, the police were
That's how we started. I mean, our first song, Dead Heat, is about the cops, basically.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how it is now, but then it was, like Black Flag has that, Police Story, that song Police Story.
I feel like every good punk band has a song about the police.
In it they say, this is a war.
Yeah.
And it really was, man. Like with Ventura County Sheriffs, Oxnard PD, Hueneme PD, you go to LA, man, the LAPD and the LA County Sheriffs, they were hardcore.
Yeah.
And I mean, beat downs, getting maced in the face, just for being different, just for expressing yourself.
Yeah.
And so a song like Black Sticks is like really kind of more than just fuck the police. It's like, well, why? That was my core question was, why can't we reason? We are, and this is the lyrics. We're human beings.
Yeah.
Why can't we dialogue?
Exactly.
And I mean, that's probably something that even resonates today.
That's exactly the reason. Like, I mean, I was thinking like, oh, I'm trying to like relate to like other songs that I've already listened to, and like I realized like I take topics that I've like from bands that like Black Sticks and Silver Edge. Like that's what was like a Dead Heat influence too, because it was like about the cops, like you've seen like obviously the last couple of years of like more brutality of everything, and that's obviously that influenced a lot like of like what we were writing about or what I was writing about at the time, and I don't know, I just feel like that influence resonates from you guys.
Yeah,
too.
Cool. I mean, without getting too political, man, America's I mean, it's an experiment.
Yeah.
And it's still going, and I think that's something where like popular culture really matters and really makes a difference, and and popular culture is punk, man. Like, punk and hardcore, metalcore, whatever you want to call it, like really kind of hammering it and making a statement about about life and about what you experience is, I guess, in many respects what it's all about.
Yeah, it is. I feel like my first demo was like about the cops, like about like brutality or like, and like depression, same thing, like same topics, and I realized like going back and like, because I was going back to the In Control record and listening like all the topics, I'm like, that's basically all the same topics I use, and I was like, oh, okay. And that's like, I feel like that's like the main influences in a lot of bands growing up these days, especially like how In Control did, like they're the same topics, and I was thinking, I was pinpointing that, I was like, oh, it's every band has like the same kind of like feelings. Yeah. Everybody goes through that same thing.
Yeah. I mean, I guess that experience, or that kind of mutual experience, it carries through. It's like a narrative thread. Yeah. Like it's, and and it's not that you're just rehashing the same things. I think I look at how bands like you, bands like Terrain, all these young bands coming up are really building on that legacy, but adding to it, like in telling your story and telling a deeper story, and putting your finessing it. Yeah. So it's it's just super cool. And circling back to that question, he said, how does it make me feel? It just makes me feel really proud. Really, and like I said, like I really do feel, I mean, not even feel. I mean, we are part of history. That, and
I feel that too. Like like when I started like not going to show, like when I first started like starting this band, like there was a dry spell like in the Oxnard area, like there wasn't too much going on, and then like I feel like my point was to get like the word of Nardcore across. So, like I felt like I'm like, oh, and then we started touring. I'm like, you know what, I can start putting that into like our songs, and like I have one song that is just a chant, it's a Nardcore chant, whatever. And I was like, and then I'm like, all right, well, people everywhere are gonna start hearing about this, and that's what I was like, and I feel like we had an influence a little bit too.
Yeah, that's cool. That's really cool.
Really helps, and I'm like, but I'm looking at like the influence you guys had, so I'm like, I'm comparing. I'm like, hopefully we can get to like a spot like that where it's like the same kind of influence on
probably
someone 40 years later is what I'm saying. Like you guys had that influence already, and you guys, the band's still going. It's still like thriving. It's still a thing. Like it's not like you guys aren't shut it off completely and like.
Yeah, I mean, that's an interesting one, because when we broke up, it was like In Control was out. We were on the cusp of doing a big tour, and I won't go into the grubby details, but the band kind of split on bad terms, and I was like, I'm out, I'm going to Europe, and I went to Europe for 2 years, traveled, ended up in Australia, decided to stay, went to university, met my wife, and I completely was out of punk and out of hard. I mean, I guess it's still, like, because I always say I'm still a hardcore kid. Yeah. It's like, that's why I'm an academic, because as an academic, you're still questioning authority, you're still challenging, you're still pushing boundaries, but you do it with journal articles and research rather than lyrics, you know. But
it's just a different
for me, it's
different vessel.
Yeah, it's a different vessel for kind of activism, for making a statement, for protest. But I really, you know, like academia is really for me like a punk rock career.
Gotcha.
And you know, but I had totally like was out of it.
Yeah.
And then it was like, I think it was about 2000, probably when you were getting into punk, probably about 2002. Our bass player John Morris contacted me in Australia and said, "This dude wants to put out, you know, reissue In Control," and I'm like, "Bullshit, what?" I just thought it was, you know, like, yeah, whatever, you know. And I kept ignoring it, and he's like, "Nah, dude, this is serious." You know? And then I started doing some searching on the internet, and that was when I was like, "Dude, Nardcore is a thing." You know,
you just come back to it like 10 years later. You're like, "Oh shit!" Like, what you left off on? You're like, "Oh."
You know, I left Oxnard in '88. Well,
89, something like that.
Well, yeah, very tail in December '88.
I was born '89, so that's why I was like,
there you go.
You left like basically like right when I was born.
Like total bookend. I leave, you come. And so in 2002, I start searching, and I'm going, fuck, there's these bands. Nardcore's a thing. Nardcore was a joke.
Yeah.
It was a joke.
Yeah.
I think Ismael Hernandez coined it. We were at some party, and he was like, "Hey, Oxnard hardcore, Nardcore," and we were just like, it was a joke, man.
Yeah.
And next thing you know, it's like, it's a scene. It's real. People are like, you know, Nardcore for life. It's like in the blood. And that was where I really went, oh, fuck. In Control mattered.
Yeah.
You know, yeah.
Oh, yeah. So you said In Control was recorded at like a good spot, like a good recording.
Yeah. That's a real interesting story. Like, you know, like.
How'd you get that?
I was totally into like East Coast hardcore. That like became my kind of religion, you know. I got every fanzine I could get my hand on. I wrote to bands, and you know, like I've still got little notes of like from Nancy Burrell or Ian MacKaye, and so that was my thing. So we just, and I really, like when talking to these guys, you know, I saw they were touring all the time and playing shows. And I go, okay, that's what I'm gonna do. We're just gonna play all the time. And I was a hard taskmaster. I was like, we practice every day.
We're gonna do it.
We practice every day for 2-3 hours. I'd make them do the set 4 or 5 times. And that's why we were probably so tight. You know, I mean,
but it's necessary when you want something so bad, it's like, you want to get it done.
Yeah. And then we just prolifically played. We played, you got a party? I'm playing. You know, I was talking to a dude last night who's going, oh, you played at my birthday party in Venice. And I'm like, yeah, we played anywhere. So we you know, so it was parties, clubs, wherever.
Any chances.
And so, you know, we were playing, you know, from Santa Barbara to San Diego, just, you know, and all over the valley, anywhere.
Yeah.
And so we were getting a name, and because, you know, and for me, man, it was like, you know, you mentioned before the energy, the aggression, man, and you know, and I was just channeling that, you know, I just had a hard work ethic. And anyways, this guy, we were at I think at the cafe, and this dude approaches me, and you know, he looks like some mild-mannered, he looks kind of punk, and you know, he goes, oh, hey, I got a record label called Upstart, you know, my name's George, you know, I've been following you guys, you know, I'd like to record you. And I'm like, whoa, dude, cool. So, you know, I'll make the story short, but, you know, we negotiated, signed a contract, and we're recording. And I had a good friend at the time whose dad had a studio, you know, and we go, oh yeah, we're gonna record there. And so we I don't even remember where it was. It was like in East LA.
Okay.
I don't know.
Some good studio in East LA.
No, it wasn't a good studio.
No? I mean, it sounded good.
No. This is the first part. So we go down on the studio, and you know, we go in there, and the dude's going, oh man, Jimi Hendrix recorded on this desk, and all this shit, you know, and you know, it's kind of really dingy, and there's like a broken window with the board over it.
Yeah.
And we start recording. You know, we set up, we start recording. George Newberry from Upstart comes down, And he's like looking around and he's going, dude, Ron, can I talk to you? And he goes, pack your shit up. We're getting out of here. And I go, but dude, man, this is like, you know, like we're getting a deal. And he's going, nah, dude, this place sucks, you know?
Okay.
And he goes, so he takes us to West Hollywood to this studio called Skip Sailor. And this is like the fucking real deal. Like, you know, this is like.
Where bands record.
Yeah, this is like, I mean, we're like, you know, this is like top notch.
Yeah.
Some music. But anyways, so we're recording and we record it. I think we recorded it live, like we just kind of went. And I laid down the vocals and like they were good. I was happy with it. But then we went and we got a, you know, demo of it, and I took it to Mark Hickey.
Okay.
And Mark had a listen, and he goes, you know, it's kind of what we were talking about before about demos, and he goes, Ron, man, I'm not feeling it. He goes, I've seen you play live so many times.
Put more energy.
And you're
into
just like, you've got that driving aggression. It's not there.
Yeah.
And so I fucking go, dude. So I go back to George and I say, can I redo the vocals? And he goes, man, that's expensive. And I go, well, I'm not releasing this if we don't.
You gotta do it.
You know. And so we go in and we do it again. And I'm just overdubbing. I'm in a room. It's dark. I got the mic there, and I just did it like a gig, man. I just had it fucking blaring in my head, and I was just fucking rocking out and just gave it everything. And then we nailed it.
Yeah.
But you know, the quality of that studio, and I think that's why our record kind of
went so far.
You know, it's like I was listening to it on the way here, and it is still rock solid.
Yeah,
I mean, you know, it's like it's my band. You know, I'm not big noting myself, but
I get you.
You know, and the fact that the guys could play.
Yeah.
I mean, like, you know,
it just sounded solid. Like,
you know, it was just solid.
And having a solid release, I feel like it's one of those things like you can check that off your book, like, and you're like, damn, like I did that.
Yeah.
Like, I feel that same way. Like when we recorded and finally like had it like locked down, and we're like, this sounds great.
Yeah, yeah. And it's like you listen to, you know, no disrespect to any band from the time, but you listen to a lot of other.
Compared, it's not the same.
It's just not the same. Like it's just
the
really
quality is
grainy,
better, like
tinny, you know. And so I was like, thank God for George Newberry, because you know we got that good quality studio, that good quality sound, and it's, you know, and I don't know, there's something about the music, man. It lasted, you know, like it's still. You know, I think it still holds its own with, you know.
It does. I mean, like obviously compared live, the sound is like the same.
It's so cool.
You put a standard with the record, is what I'm saying. Like,
thanks, man.
So it's like you either have to hold up, or it's like it's not the same. Like, it can't be.
Yeah, and like playing again, it's, you know, in some respects, like I was telling my wife last night, I was going, man, this is hard leaving. Like, you know, we played that show last night, and it was, you know. Like Fang, we've toured with, man, we've known those dudes since the 80s.
Forever, yeah.
You know, and we toured with them in 2002 when we did the Doctor Strange release, and, you know, to be going to Europe with them. So playing with those dudes, that 1983 band were fucking awesome from Florida, like seeing dudes carrying it forward. And, you know, and Dr. No, man, I mean, you know, say no more, man. I mean, me and Brandon were like, I mean, that's, you know, Blake's brothers.
Yeah, so everybody who you started with.
Like such deep history. And, you know, and Fred, Madikin, you know, I mean, these dudes, like, man, they knew my parents. They partied in my house.
Yeah.
They, you know, like we listened to music together. We got beat up together. We ran from the cops together. And it's hard leaving, man. Like I was, you know, and this dude, man, like Blake, who's off camera, like, man, these guys are my brothers, man.
Yeah.
They're my family.
Yeah.
And it's fucking hard to leave.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes I wish I was back here, but, you know, I got a life in Australia.
Yeah.
Got a career.
You made your own life.
Yeah.
It's another, what, like 30 years that you were there?
34, I think.
Yeah. So that's a whole lifespan.
Yeah.
You've lived 2 lives already.
Yeah.
So, I mean, having to go back to your first life, you're like,
That's really cool, Chris. It's like, it's totally true. It's like I do have 2 lives.
Yeah.
Like, you know, and I mean, the funny thing was my wife was telling me the other day, Valerie, she was saying, you know, when I first met you, he goes, I knew you were in a band, but you never really talked about it. And, you know, and there was, you know, there was probably a bit of bitterness there, you know.
Yeah.
And so I didn't talk about it. And then, you know, she was kind of like, oh yeah, he played in a band, you know, like it was a garage thing or something. And then when we came out in 2012 for Narmegadon.
Yeah.
And that was like that guy, Ted Townsend, he actually emailed me and said, what would it take to get Stalag to play? And I said, an air ticket to LA would be cool. And so he paid for me and my wife to come out.
Yeah.
And we played up at the Gilman, and that was fucking off tap.
Yeah.
And then we're you know, but my wife's going, the Gilman's small, man. My wife's going, oh yeah, this is cool.
Yeah.
It's going, but what all these young kids know is the songs they can sing the lyrics. And we go down to the observatory in Santa Ana, and you know, we get there and they're like, you know, okay, Ron, you know, like, you know, there's a stage manager, and like, here's your mic, you know, and he's telling my wife, okay, when the curtain opens, Ron's gonna go out and you go over there. Curtain opens, I walk on stage and wah! And my wife just goes, fuck. He's famous.
The impact is like.
With early shows, I guess, like the biggest show we ever played, I think at the time, was at Perkins Palace.
Okay.
And that was with, I think there was a band opening, I can't remember, us, it might have been D-Cry, us, Big Boys from Texas, who are awesome, Toy Dolls, and Suicidal Tendencies.
Okay.
And that show was off tap. It was huge, big stage, I think, you know, whatever, 3,000 people or whatever.
Yeah.
And, but that show was cool, but my favorite shows were smaller shows.
Yeah.
Like, like in the Cathay.
Everybody's just crammed up.
Yeah, but one of my favorite shows, and that I think is really iconic, is we played at the Federal Building. You used to be able to, like, bands, just local bands, you could get a permit for $25 to put on a show, because it's like a concourse and a stage. And what was really cool is you're playing in front of, like, you know, the representation of the federal government, and and even though we weren't like an overtly political band, we played a lot of benefits, like, you know, Rock Against Racism, Rock Against Reagan, El Salvadorian solidarity benefits. So we were, you know, really political.
Yeah.
And so to play the show at the Federal Building was just, you know, it was kind of like, a real statement.
Yeah.
And that show was awesome.
Yeah, that's iconic. Like, that's how I felt like when we played Hellfest. We played
you played Hellfest?
Yeah.
Oh, fuck. Man.
So
we
played early. It was like
man.
noon, and there was like still 3,000 people watching us. It's a 60,000 people fest.
Yeah, yeah.
And so I was like, seeing this many people, we've never played. This stage was bigger than most places we've ever played.
Yeah.
I don't know. That was like a crazy, like, for being a band from here.
Yeah.
To being that or doing something like that, I'm like, that's another checkbook, you know.
Nah, dude, it's a tick, man. I mean, we're from Oxnard, man. And, you know, I mean, you know, who's ever heard of Oxnard, man?
Well, the world now.
You know, and that's the thing, bro. Like, you know, we put Oxnard, Ventura County on the map, you know.
Trying to put it on our back, you know, like, and they carry it. You
know, and that's the thing, man. It's like, you know, this is our roots, this is where we're from. And, you know, it's so awesome to pass the torch, man.
Yeah.
Like, you know, I mean, and that's really what I feel like. You know, we pass the torch to bands like you know, bands like Strife, you know.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's you know, it's just incredible.
Yeah.
You know, and you know, I remember, you know, teaching a class, because I'm a sociologist, and you know, we touch on, you know, youth subcultures and subcultural studies, and I was teaching an introductory sociology, and I said, oh yeah, I used to play in a band, you know, and they always go, oh, what band? And I said, oh, you probably never heard of us, Stalag 13. And this kid goes, Nardcore. He goes, you guys are legends, man. They're all legends, man. He knew them all, man. Ill Repute, Aggression, man. Even Missing 23rd, all, you know, all the bands that kind of came after. And you know, and that's when I just go, man, props.
I'm in control.